Rest in
So I want to
peace,
ask you all a
young
question.
Dolph.
How many of you all have heard of a rapper by the name of Young Dolph? Give me a yes or no if you've heard of Young Dolph. And he's a rapper that died today. So if you haven't heard of him, let me say he's a guy out of Memphis, and he has been on the Breakfast Club and stuff like that. And he was shot, I think, today at some point. I think he was very young, about 36 years old, too young to die, too young to die. And I thought that since we're reading in the book club, we're reading Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson, and we're looking at Black history. I want to kind of start the conversation with something that's relevant to what's happening right now in our community. I want to start off by talking about Young Dolph and this homicide. And believe it or not, this really links to Black history. This links to the control of music and media, the things that are promoted by media, the things that others tend to buy from Black people. And this is important to understand because you have to sort of look at, and I'm going to talk about Young Dolph in a minute, but I want to talk about the context of it all. I mentioned to you guys on the podcast that 200 rappers died this year. Did you all know that? Give me a yes or no in the chat if you knew that 200 hip hop artists have died this year alone, just this year, 200. And you also know that the death of Young Dolph, his unfortunate homicide, occurred right after you had another hip hop tragedy about 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago, the Travis Scott concert. Y'all saw at the Travis Scott concert, fans died at the Travis Scott concert. That's going to be very expensive. Lots of lawsuits are being filed. Travis Scott is being blamed, but really Live Nation is probably the one that's most responsible, in my opinion, because they let so many people into that venue. They shouldn't have let that many people into the venue. But let's talk about Young Dolph and kind of put it into context to why I would even be discussing that as I'm reading from Dr. Anderson's book. And we're going to read from Dr. Anderson's book, Black Labor, White Wealth, in 1 second. But I think you have to really understand how the present is created by the past. Everything that you think is modern and new ain't nothing new under the sun. Everything you think, only exists in the present. The most important thing to understand when you're trying to understand Black history is to understand that you are living Black history. Everything around you was a manifestation, was a creation that was created during Black history. When I did a little thing on my Instagram, a short little video when I was in Denver visiting my daughter this week, and I showed some big, gigantic $100 million, $200 million skyscrapers. And I said, this is the real racism. None of these buildings are owned by Black people. White people own thousands and thousands of buildings that probably cost $100 million or more. Black people probably don't. I don't think Black people own one single $100 million building. Not one. White people own thousands. We don't. I don't even know of one that we own. Maybe there's